Meeting to order. Today is February 15th, 2023, and it's 6 p.m. We will have the Pledge of Allegiance. Director Scott, will you please lead us?
Everybody please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Terry, would you start with introducing yourself and we'll go around?
Terry Lincoln.
Scott McVeigh.
Erwin Fuss.
And Chair Beverly Fickus. Welcome, everybody. Oh, yep, and absent is Chuck Jones.
Chuck Jones, and we also have our general manager and Caleb Falk here, who's taking the minutes.
So open time, is there anybody that would like to speak ahead of time about any item not on the agenda? Oh, okay.
Sandy has a name.
I've been there. We're gonna have Sandy Winters. I just want to make an announcement about the Farwise committee. We're gonna have a meeting a week from tomorrow, 6 o'clock, Community Hall. And I have some copies from Cal Forest, their latest information on wildfire action plans. It's got a lot of good information. And I'll leave it back here on the bench for anybody that might want some. And you're all welcome to come to our meeting.
Thank you, Sandy.
Thank you.
Item number 5 is our consent agenda, and is anybody needing anything pulled, or we'll just discuss? They're supposed to be routine, but I know there's some issues with some things and questions.
Well, Madam Chair, a couple things. One is we received communication from you about a couple of items in the minutes. So I would just point out that under 3A, middle of that paragraph, Chairman Fuss then denied that suggestion. I believe it should be declined, that suggestion.
Oh, yes.
In other words, you declined being the vice chair. And also on 6B, the next page over, about 3/4 down in that paragraph, Director McVeigh requested to be recorded that he did not descend from that mountain. No, I mean, from, so in other words, Director McVeigh requested that we record the descent. I believe is what she would.
Yes.
As in D-I-S-S.
Okay.
E-N-T, not descent.
While you're on that, Madam Chairman, I got one more about it.
Okay.
Yeah. And that is under general manager's report. Just to be absolutely sure about this, it says under B, it says board update. Director Fuss reported that a new update will be at the April meeting of EAGSA. That's not what I said. I said that, and you can word it this way, Director Fuss reported that a new MSR, Municipal Service Review, will be at the April meeting of LAFCO. That's where I said.
Very good. Thank you. As our new administrative assistant will tell you, that it's no small feat to listen to the audio recording while sitting in the center room back there. So,
Absolutely.
we will do the best we can to handle those items.
So anything else from anybody on the minutes?
No?
So let's go to paid bills. Any issues on paid bills? Questions about what some of them were?
I've got a question.
Yes.
On page, the first page, it says, Roberto Chacon, void reimbursement, employee lunch voided as employee fund card was used. What is that? Is that some kind of card they have?
Yeah.
That they use for that?
Yeah, so a couple of things. One, Chair Fick has also asked about the meal and reimbursements. So, they actually have a card. What our bookkeeper gave me kind of a list of some of which get reimbursed through their employee association account. In other words, each of them put aside some money for that. So in other words, that's not necessarily the district cost. And so that's really what happened here. We thought this was going to be a district cost, and so we were going to reimburse them for that. And we realized, oh no, that wasn't supposed to be done that way. It was getting paid for out of the association amount. And then there obviously are some costs that are specifically the district's costs, and the finance and others committee will see that under the meal and reimbursements account for the expenses.
Oh, if you could please clarify, because down halfway, Roberto's was voided, but Bill had reimbursements for employee lunch and a front door lock.
Correct. So he actually purchased the repair, the front door lock, at his own card, and so we reimbursed him for that. And then we also purchased for our, I believe it was our December lunch food for that, so we were paying for that.
Oh, okay,
This is-
so do we have that in our budget, is my question?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I believe you had also, wait, I'll let you ask it probably, but you had asked about, there's kind of in the middle, there's these health insurance premium reimbursement. So these are part of our OPEB costs.
Right?
And so we get from actually CalPERS, a combination of things from them. One, the cost, and also they included the resolution 2004-4 in which the board and the district had authorized those payments. And so we get from them that cost, and then we get reimbursed them for that.
So I guess what my question was, so we have Rick Casarini and Roger Schreiber for the public, is that we reimburse them for their retiree health benefit portion, which we're required to do. I'm just curious, is that, do we get a statement from somebody that shows how much has to be paid out each time?
Yeah,
That was what I just wanted to verify.
okay, so yeah, we get a combination of sorts. One, beginning of the year, we get a note from CalPERS Insurance that has both the resolution and the obligation, and then there's the monthly amount.
Okay.
That is eventually sent. You know, I think that over time, it would be nice to fix this one. So, you know, we have, as the board knows, 7, maybe 8 retirees that we are currently paying retiree medical for. It just so happens in this case, a portion of their medical, we're paying directly in this manner versus all the others we pay just straight up, and it doesn't go to them, right?
Right.
Routed through them. I didn't explain that very well, but these two, it just sort of gets routed through them, through CalPERS.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that they've actually had the charges. And then I think there was a couple of First National Bank of Omaha, and it's probably been explained before, and I just see it, and I just.
No, that's okay. It's, and again, this one is one I've been reviewing and considering potentially making some changes. This is an old, these are two credit cards that the district has. Pretty much all of one of them are subscriptions to our software. I think you'll see in the later agenda item where I describe where we're going to save some money on a lot of these different subscriptions. A couple of them are supplies, and they get to office supplies. The $1,300 one had supplies and materials that were sent to them. That one. So those are the two things. Mostly it's all subscriptions and a couple of the supplies. Like when we order something from Amazon that's for paper or printing materials or whatever else.
Anyone else have questions on?
Just comments, having gone through the bills prior to signing the checks, I noticed, this time around, and I know we've had a mess to clean up, but I noticed that there were 2 late fees on 2 of the invoices and a, interest charge. So I'm sure this is just a process of getting everything cleaned up, but those are the kind of things in a district that's really tight for cash we can't afford.
Yes, duly noted, and it is part of our challenge of getting everything onto a regular schedule.
I understand.
And I would just mention, because Director McVeigh had asked about it, 3/4 down the line is this Badger meter item. That's for 160 of the updated meter reading material that goes onto that. The board might recall you had budgeted an amount to update those meters. The good news with Badger was we didn't have to pay when we ordered them, we had to pay when we received them, so we just got those in.
Okay.
So that was one of the larger ones that was on here. I believe there was a question last time related to PG&E, and so you'll see that there's a fairly large PG&E one, because last month we hadn't quite caught that one for the wells, so that one's primarily the wells.
One of the other ones that I forgot about was the Horton, McNulty, and Saturn, and it says the 2021 audit for $12,600. I thought we had already previously paid some to that accounting firm, so there's been no, so we kept hearing that it was gonna cost more than what we originally thought, but it doesn't sound like it. The 12.6 is a good figure.
Yes, well, first of all, it's quite possible that the previous expenditure for one of these firms was misconstrued. It was actually for our actuarial that did a little report work for it. If you look actually at this invoice, they did expend more to do this one than they had originally thought, but those that were signing checks will recall, if you looked at it, they actually gave quite a significant credit, because they knew that we had an expectation that was different than what they had come up with. But they said they figured it was an investment in their time to learn our district and our systems, and as you probably can figure, the 2021 audit took a lot of time, more than they thought.
Yeah.
And I will just report that they started on the 2022 audit.
Excellent.
Anyone else with anything, any questions? Okay. Oh, go ahead.
No. I have no further
Okay,
questions
so
on
I need
it. The consent agenda.
need a motion to accept the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
So Beverly says I accept. I abstain from the Smalley Reese Wiseman.
Oh, okay.
I think you saw that noted in the minutes.
Yeah.
Yes. Because that was one we did check.
Oh, and there are no, and payroll was fine, and we accept that too, and we have no activity reports, correct?
So I did want to mention, obviously you approved them, but again, you'll hear more about it, hopefully from the finance committee at during the committee reports. We were able to get very rough draft preliminary activity reports and mid-year budget to the finance committee. We got a lot of good feedback and things that we need to clean up, but we just weren't able to get that done for this meeting. So the plan is for the March meeting, and we'll have all those, and it'll actually be a business item to do the mid-year budget review. The activity reports will still run.
Thank you. Okay, we are going to,
Madam Chairman, if I may, we have an item on the agenda, 6B, and we have two folks in the audience here that are here to speak on that particular item having to do with the capital,
Capacity charge.
Thank you. Couldn't get it up. I would request that the board to put that item up as the first item and under old business, so these folks don't have to sit around all night long and wait for us.
Anyone have a problem with that?
No.
Okay, so we're gonna move 6B up.
You took the words right out of my mouth, Madam Chair and Director Frost, thank you very much. So just before we get to the particular item that we have there, the board might recall, we had a very brief meeting last month regarding a whole bunch of protests. That was a joke for those that were here and listened to a lot of them. So I thought I would, since we had another protest for this particular meeting, to just a quick report on under 6E report of the ones that were we saw last time, and that we sent the first one, you may recall, was a usage protest, not a penalty protest. We sent them a letter. Kayla's actually been working on that, updated our payment plan, offering, all the rest. The rest of these were done that you might recall. One of the ones that the board did not decide on because we didn't have enough information was referred to as Chris Pete. So we did get more information and found out that the $600 request had actually been approved by staff at some point, and so we took care of that. They still have another penalty that they're got to deal with. I think it's a 50 or $100. I don't remember the exact one. The other one that may have been confusing, and Chair Ficus also sent a question about the second to last one, Jose Montes. The board might recall that this was one in which the staff had a big credit on the account and was going to cut a check because the customer had already paid the fee, even though it had already been waived by the previous staff. And so, as we had decided, we put the credit onto the account. The credit will run until it expires. We're not going to cut a check and send money back to them. So maybe it wasn't clear on there, but that's what we did on that one in particular. And we had some folks here the last one, and we did take care of that one as well. So just wanted to give you a quick update on that. Maybe next month I might, on the consent calendar, just provide a little report on any of the other ones that we may get in January and February.
Would appreciate that.
Just so you know. All right, so the item that we have before you, we have a specific one. Unfortunately, this one looks like it's been hanging around out there for a long time. As you will see in the packet, what we've provided you is specifically a request for a capacity fee refund. The original deposit was made in 2016, and so you'll see in the packet that there was a letter from dated July 26, 2021 from then General Manager Kurt Bourne, saying we need to see documentation of the fee paid, and once we see that, we'll take it to the board. So I cannot speak to why it took so long to be in 2023 to be here, but it seems to have a lot of different emails flying back and forth. But if you turn the page, you will see that we have the receipt and the actual amount that was originally paid. The new property owner that has purchased the property has made the determination that the size of the meter and all the rest of that stuff doesn't meet their needs, so they're going to go with another source of water, mainly a well. But one of the things that this pointed out, and I'll definitely call for them to come up and speak to you, but just for your own purposes, from the new general manager's perspective, It was fairly challenging to find the information as it relates to this, because it appears that we give a receipt when a capacity fee is paid for, and it basically sits in a paper file. And so we are instituted that if that happens, we're gonna actually create an account so that we can actually have on there something that knows and tracks that it's been paid. And that's why you have sort of this picture of a couple of account types of things.
Yeah.
The other thing is, you know, it's been the practice in other places where I've been, capacity fees are for the APN in which that they're paid for. It's not necessarily for the customer. And so in other words, you can't pay a capacity fee and say, oh, I now bought this other piece of property, I want to move that capacity fee over there. No, it's for that APN. So again, if the board decides to refund this, we also need to make sure that it's noted in all the files that this APN number no longer has capacity from the district. So if there's a future property owner that decides they want to come in and get capacity from the district, they will have to pay whatever that current capacity charge is for that usage.
For clarification, I noticed that there were a couple different APNs listed in the information. And I was wondering, did it actually get transferred to a different one
Yes.
from the original?
Yeah, I'll let the property owner speak to
That's
that.
fine. And that's fine. I may have questions afterwards then.
All right, with that,
Yeah.
please,
Okay, so,
if you could go up there and state your name
and thank you, I appreciate you seeing this early, so what had happened is, when we purchased the property, in
and
Thompson,
your name.
my name is Jim Deptuck, we're the property owners
Yep.
of Heavenly Valley.
Thanks, Jim.
Okay, so, what had happened is, we had purchased the property from, the original owners of Heavenly Valley. And in doing so, there was a capacity charge that was paid. That was identified early on as the transaction was made. My wife and I reached out to Roberto, to verify that the capacity charge would meet the needs for the new codes of fire sprinklers. He responded and said, yes, it would, 3/4 meter would be fine. So we went ahead, and accepted the offer. The other offer was that the Springers would deal with the refund and get their money back, and we wouldn't buy the capacity charge with the property. So after speaking with the previous fire chief of Happy Valley, he stated that I better do some calculations because the capacity of that capacity would not work per fire sprinklers. So at that point, did some calculations, realized I would need at least minimum 1.25 inches. At that time, obviously, drilling a well is cheaper than 1.25 inch capacity charge, or 1.5 inches, because I don't think you guys offer 1.25 inches. So, I spoke with Roberto and asked for if we would be able to get a refund. He stated that yes, we would. Just go through the process, and we've been trying to go through the process for a while. Yeah. So that's where we stand.
A couple of questions. I'll start with, did you look into the possibility of putting in a storage tank with a booster pump?
I did. And with generation, we would have to have that under pressure. We would be looking at generation, it'd be large tanks. We looked at a couple parcels that had done this. Pretty cumbersome, and not the best practice from what we were told. So what was suggested to us was to upgrade to 1.5 meter capacity or lower.
So you mentioned that it wasn't part of you purchasing the property from the Springers. So
We had two options when we made the deal with the property. So the first option was purchase the property and the Springers would get the refund back from the capacity charge. The second option was we could purchase the property with the capacity charge attached to it. My wife and I moved the capacity charge from one APN to another because there's multiple APNs on that. So at that time, we did move it from one APN to another.
this is after we had spoke to Roberto, and he said the capacity would be fine for the fire sprinklers we needed. And then
So I don't understand, you purchased more property from Barbara?
it came in one whole sale. There was 2 APNs.
Right.
Oh, okay,
Okay.
okay.
That's what it is.
Was there a meter on any of these properties?
No.
Never a meter.
No meter.
And we would have to run, which was fine, but we would have to run from Cloverdale down Heavenly Valley. But the meter would be at Heavenly Valley, or at Cloverdale, Heavenly Valley.
Have we expended any funds at this point towards this at all?
No, and again, just for clarity's sake, that it is oftentimes an option. They could have taken 11,000 and change off of the purchase, and then the seller would have been coming to us and waiting it, but in some ways, this is a better way to do it because you have your current property.
So I know it looked like you started in 2021 to ask for refunds. So why 5 years?
Well, it had been sitting with the Springers for a while. They were looking to build, and I think with retirement and everything. We've been asking since a couple months after purchasing the property for a refund. We kept getting the runaround, but it shifted back and forth. So it was request this information, we would get it to to Clear Creek Water District, and then, a while after trying to get a hold of somebody, we would get a hold of somebody and they would say, okay, we got that, but now we're gonna need this. So we would provide that information. A while after getting a hold of somebody, and it would go to something else. So I appreciate finally seeing an email. It was great to say that this was gonna be on the board, so very appreciative.
Yeah, and just so you know, I mean, basically, Roberto brought this to my attention within a month or so of me getting here, and so I just said, well, then let's get it to the board, give me what I need, and I get it, that way we can get this off our plate.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Get it off of their plate.
Any comments in regards to this item from the public? All right, bring it back to the board. What's your pleasure, board?
Well, I move that we refund the capacity charge of $11,054. That's it, isn't it?
Yes.
Yep.
it's all about
Yep, there's no way we can do a credit because they have no account with us, so.
Correct.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor.
Well, yeah, Bill raised his hand for some reason.
4 years ago, Barbara Springer brought this to the board. I don't remember the details, but this was brought to the board and a decision was made. I want to say this was already handled.
You mean already approved?
This was already on an agenda.
Wow.
4 years ago, so you think
I'm
it's,
saying 4 years ago, this sounds like, I thought this was already handled, but
Yeah, I don't believe so, but it may well have been talked about, but we did not find anything that said that there was a
Well, in
refund.
my mind,
Roberto did not.
if we approve the refund, we make it right.
Yeah.
My only question would be, considering the state of some of the past records, are we sure that the prior owner didn't get a refund right around the close of escrow or something? I don't want to delay you getting your money back, but I don't want to pay it twice.
Yeah, it's also in our deed that was a legal deed where it states that the 3/4 meter would be transferred into our name prior to.
Okay.
We have no record in which there was a refund made or any rescission.
No bills paid, nothing showing a check was cut for that money.
We'll make one more check just to make sure for the board's comfort of mind, but we will do that before.
If we could amend that motion just a little bit, Erwin, I would like to amend it by saying that we would approve the refund with the stipulation that no prior payment to either owner had been made, then we can authorize.
Sure.
I think
I'll
that's
accept that.
reasonable.
I'll accept that as a motion.
all right, we have somebody from the floor, so we have a motion, but we don't have a second yet.
Is there any way that we can check prior meeting minutes to find out?
I've got myself a note here, and so Beverly will be
Yeah.
doing that. I just would like from Bill, if he could give me an idea of what year. I mean, I can go from 2017 forward.
Maybe 19 or 20?
Okay,
I do know that the capacity charge was on file and current up to the point of us purchasing the property. So if there was a refund on the capacity charge, then it was not stated with the board.
okay,
So that's,
all right.
We just wanna do our due
Yep, we'll
diligence.
just double check. We'll double check.
So we have a motion.
Yep, I have a motion on the floor to,
And a second.
oh, who seconded it?
Oh, I amended, but it's Erwin's motion.
My motion, but he seconded it.
Who seconded it?
I did with the
Oh, okay,
amendment.
all right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
thank you very much.
You're
So once
welcome.
they had a chance to do a little research,
Sure.
then they'll reach out to you.
Thank you very much.
I do recall something about Barbara Springer being in a set of minutes somewhere, but I don't know, I don't recall.
I will help you research that if you need help.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're more than
Thank you.
welcome. Okay, so we will
Motion, second.
go back to, item A on the USBR account reconciliation. It is just a discussion.
Yep, thank you. Madam Chair, just, again, we're keeping this on here because, we figure at some point the Bureau will get around to actually answering our questions, but they really have not. But I do want to report, the other reason to keep this on here, just gives us an opportunity to report a little bit of activity with the Bureau. One, I did talk to a couple of Bureau members at the Mid-Pacific Conference the end of January and reminded them that they needed to get back to us related to this particular item. And so we know. They did bring up the second item that, we'll be talking more about at the Finance Committee, which is sort of the WIN Act payments. They also reminded me that they will be, at some point sending us their allocation here at the end of February 20th. I would also just use this as an opportunity to mention, I believe it was at a special meeting maybe, I don't know, the chair asked about, have we heard anything about rates and charges from the Bureau? And yesterday we got in the mail a preliminary rates and charges sheet, so I will be getting that to you and the Finance Committee. So it's the reason why I say it's preliminary. You might recall, this is kind of the chart we've seen before oftentimes, where you've got your cost of service rates, irrigation full cost rate, full M&I rate, and then your other little charges and assessments. But in their infinite wisdom, they have two of the columns as TBD. So it's like, it doesn't do us a lot of good right away, but it gives us a little heads up of where it's going.
Good.
Thank you.
And then, the second item, 6B, which is another old business. I've kind of identified them as old business items. We're obviously the last month of the water year, when the board in November voted to waive penalties under the drought restrictions. They also said to bring it back every month. If you want to change your mind or do different, in December, the board reinstituted the penalties. In January, the board took no action, so the penalties are still in effect.
Can I clarify? Did we not, by board approval with my dissent, continue the penalties, not waive them? Okay.
Yeah.
I thought I heard you say we waived them.
You did in November.
In November, but then we put them back
The
on
The board
again.
waived them
It
in
was
November.
December where I dissented, okay.
December when we instituted them is when you
No,
dissented.
January.
No, December.
December.
We continue them in January without having to.
And in January, you took no action, which meant they were still in effect.
Right.
And part of that was.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I thought he said he dissented from
In
that.
December.
That's in the January minutes, but whatever.
In January, he reiterated that he
Yeah.
dissented.
Yeah,
There we go.
He didn't dissent.
we didn't really have a
Dissented.
vote.
He dissented.
Yeah, I dissented. Thank you.
Board option if you want to make any changes now. I will just,
I know, well, I would like to know, Madam Chairman, if you don't mind me asking, what have you heard from the Bureau yet about what our allocation might be next year?
Yes.
Which starts at the end of this month, by the way. Nothing or
Nothing.
something?
Nothing, right.
Okay. And there, that doesn't surprise me, they wait until the last minute, and then we have to deal with it.
Is there,
Have you been in touch with the McConnell Foundation?
Yeah.
To put in place, the possibility of getting water from them if we get a negative response from the, Bureau? Thank you. That's
yes,
good.
I was gonna mention this in my GM update. I met with Mr. Swanson, the lawyer that represents the McConnell Foundation water portion of their foundation holdings. Had an extensive meeting, it's been 2 or 3 weeks ago, just reiterating that that the district suspects that we will not have a quote normal year and full allocation, and that we will need McConnell water. And I will also report again at the GM report that we received over the weekend, a letter very similar to the letter that we sent out end of January last year, saying that water would be available. So I immediately responded that we're interested in water. And
Did he give you a date that we had to sign up by?
well, it's interesting in this letter, unlike in the previous letter, there was a comment and I'll scan all this and get this to the board at some point here soon, that there would be, there was no price specifically determined yet. But we did put in there that between $250 and $300 per acre. And then the last item was that the preference would be that all agreements would be in place by March 1st, but he recognized that the Bureau has not yet let anybody know what their allocation is, and so that might be challenging.
And it's gonna come up
So-
over the wire.
And so part of what I was gonna mention, so I'm just doing it now, is that we may, like last year, need to have a special meeting specifically to sign an agreement with them sometime that first week or so of March.
So one of the other things for the public is that we have to have our drought ordinance again, because we don't know. And it's a public hearing, so we have to have a public hearing in regards to the drought ordinance. And so we are going to try to workshop that a little bit on our side before we have a finance committee meeting to really go over that. If the HBCC can actually look at the drought ordinance and see ideas of changes that you might recommend that we put in there so it's less confusing, we would appreciate that. But it's gonna have to go boom, 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 because it's gotta be, we don't wanna be June like it was in the past when we were finally getting the drought ordinance
Really,
together.
it should be
So,
probably March.
We also need to recalculate what the amount of money it will be for, 1 unit
HCF.
of water.
Yep, all of
And
that's
that's
gotta
gonna
be
be a
taken.
blended based on the Bureau, McConnell, and Wells.
Yeah, and again, we won't know till the last minute what everything's gonna end up being,
It
but.
doesn't surprise me, it's that way all the time.
It's that way all the time. I think, again, just for all of our purposes, we fully appreciate the quantity of rain that we received from mid-December through mid-January, the significant rains. We know Lake Shasta went up 60 feet in that period of time. But, if you're looking at it, well, water went through the glory hole in Whiskeytown. But Trinity is still less than 50% full. Admittedly, it has a pretty good snowpack. I think in talking to the Bureau which is, I think, one of their excuses for being very tight-lipped, when I said, well, what do you think? Are we talking 50%, 30%, what do you think? They, they're nervous, because last year it rained great until January 15th. It stopped. So they're just nervous about that this year. Now it looks like we're gonna get some rain coming in here in about 7-8 days. So again, we'll see. I'm guessing they're gonna be pretty conservative.
The other thing would be on the 20th this month, NOAA will come out with their next prediction for weather. The long range still says equal or, less chance of normal rainfall through the rest of the rain year, so. They didn't predict the atmospheric rivers, but okay.
So Dennis, did you have a comment?
I'd rather stick with the Farmer's Almanac. Go ahead.
Dennis Hassan, or Hossein, somebody say. I think yesterday, the regional water quality control board come out with an urgent, quote, change to their water plan. And I think that was due to the governor's request. And I think generally, when we get lots of water, like we did the first of the month or last month, they raised the amount of water that goes towards the delta for the smelt and the two smelts, the delta smelt and the long fin smelt. And so that they were going to start to tell the Bureau to open up the dam and release, larger amount of water. Governor stepped in and said, no, we're not going to. And there's about a 7-page thing from, study and documentation of everything and what water they need for this and that, for the smell and this. And so to date, it was to keep a larger amount of storage in the reservoirs. But we still don't know what that's going to be. If this is going to be just lip service, if the amount of additional storage is small, or later on they'll change and send it down. We still really don't know. It's going to take several days for people to study that 70-page study to see what the heck it's trying to say.
From what I understand with what Dennis is talking about, it's a TUCP. It's a temporary injunction for only like 30 days or 60 days. And something to do with the decision 1641, whatever the heck that is. Do you know any more information about that at all?
Yes, I mean, it is a temporary urgency change order. I think that's what that TUCO kind of stands for. And it is related to a state water board's decision. It's a water rights decision. There are requirements in that water rights decision that provide flows for the delta smelt. And so basically what this change did is it says, no, let's not release a bunch of water out to the ocean for nothing. Well, that's my opinion on that one. I think so that's what it is. It is short term, but at least it gives us some relief. One of the things that us water managers would argue is that we obviously have a significant physical drought over the last 2-3 years. But it's exacerbated by certain regulations and requirements. Some of them are the ones you just heard about. And we really do have a regulatory drought. I mean, there are elements to the regulations and flows in which you're forcing us to be into a drought when actually the physical conditions, not necessarily so.
Madam Chairman, I just could put this out for everybody to hear. My great fear is that the Bureau of Reclamation, around the 20th of this month, will come back and say, you got this much domestic and this much agriculture. And then we'll proceed ahead, we'll buy some McConnell water, we'll factor in some well water, and then doggone it, it won't rain again. And sometime around May, they'll cut us back to almost zero again.
Or if it rains, we're still,
You still got the same amount.
Yeah.
Well, they can update it a little bit. It would be great if they updated upward, but that,
Because that would reduce our oil consumption.
yeah.
yeah.
I don't know, man. So anyway, we're at the mercy of the Bureau of Reclamation on that.
And Mother Nature, yeah. But Bureau, yes, because I have kind of an inside track on the DWR, and they've been checking the snowpack, which nobody has mentioned yet. And we are at huge moisture capacity inside of our snowpack. And they're saying if we don't have a heat wave come through and melt it too fast, if it melts slow, it's gonna fill up the aquifers and stuff. This is locally as well as up towards Truckee and that area. But we have a horrendous water amount in our snowpack this year that they haven't seen in, I think he said 20 years.
Actually, no, about 4 or 5 years ago, it was even greater at this time.
Well, the depth of it up around Truckee is, they said 20 years.
185% of normal.
Way up there.
Yes.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's good. It stays
So,
there,
and nobody
we're
has
good.
mentioned that, and unfortunately, I don't know the connection between DWR and Bureau, but DWR is probably below the Bureau.
DWR is the state of California.
I think they're
Department of
above,
Water
they're the
Resources.
ones.
Are they?
That's federal.
They do their monthly snowpack surveys the first
Right.
day or two of every month.
Right,
And we've got 2 more, the March one and the
Yeah.
April one will be the telling one.
and it was interesting
What's the
because
capacity
yesterday you
then?
could see snow falling again.
Yes.
Yeah.
We had quite a bit of
Yeah.
snow, so.
And the
it's
storms that we hope will be coming in about a week are
Right.
colder storms, so.
Right, yeah.
Thank you, Jackie.
Madam Chair, I think all of this is a reason why, on 6B, we will just leave it as is.
Yes.
I think so.
Agreed. Well,
All
we're
right.
also starting a new water here. So,
We just got off the subject.
Just a little bit, so. All right, moving on to 6C, the grant project, emergency SCADA electrical repair project grant with the state board funding.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, this item, I brought to you last month an update that the state had sent a draft funding agreement related to this particular emergency SCADA electrical repairs project, and its funding agreement D211815. That way it's in the minutes, hopefully. It appears that a year ago, thanks to the good work of then interim general manager Bill, he had gone to the state to talk about some grant opportunities for fixes to this particular area in this project. The board probably already knows that when we are heavily dependent on our wells, we have to go down there and manually start them and get them going. They cannot operate multiple wells at the same time. So there's quite a bit of impact, especially when we're in significant drought. So the state allocated $477,000 from their urgent drinking water fund, based on the fact that this was urgent emergency repairs. They also made it available because from that fund, because they thought, since it was repairs, that it could get done by the end of 2023. They had an expectation that the district would have already started on this sometime in the fall of last year. So when I had a meeting with the state last month, I said, you're talking about a small district, we don't have a lot of money to put out with an expectation that, a year later, you're gonna reimburse us. And so they said, oh, gee, we're sorry about that, we'll get you the funding agreement, the draft, and all the rest of that. So then we met with Pace, because we want to make sure that the electrical repairs are designed correctly. We're not just doing it on there. We also had a site meeting with an electrical local electrician, John Rossi, who can supply for and do much of the work. Also, there was a meeting to look at what district staff can do. So in other words, district staff can actually do some of this work, and we can get reimbursed from the grant for the cost of some of the work that they're doing. The state reiterated to us that they consider this CEQA exempt because it's repairs, and they also considered that it did not need to go through the design, bid, award, construction process because it was emergency repairs. But I did have to look into our policies as it relates to bidding projects, and so that's why you'll see in that resolution, there's just some findings that it's an emergency and that we don't have to do that. I also ran this by our district council to make sure, Rachel McBean, she provided excellent edits to make it much better than the thing that I had drafted. So what we have before, the other thing the state needs is they need an ordinance or a resolution. They call it a resolution. It appears that the district practice is to only do really ordinances. So we have an ordinance that authorizing to enter into the funding agreement and also basically authorizing the general manager. They need that on file so that they can move forward. And then there's the ordinance, so that's 2023-02, and then there's the ordinance 2023-03, which is signing the agreement with Pace to move on with the project and making all those different findings. Now, one of the things, if you've looked at it, the specific directive that the state gave us is that this is urgent drinking water money. It has to be spent. The project has to be completed by the end of 2023. Again, they said it didn't need to, it was a repairs, it didn't need CEQA, and it didn't need bid. It could be design build. It cannot go over the cost, but they recognize, or what they've allocated, but they recognize that based on 2022 and 2023, just inflationary costs of wire and components and even supply chain issues could impact the cost, but they strongly warned us that if it was more than 2 or 3% of this cost, they weren't, in other words, it has to stay under $500,000, because this urgent drinking water doesn't have any more money than that. So that, Pace knows that, we've communicated to that. They suspect that once they get going, there may be a few $1,000s here or there that are above what they think it's going to be. Now, you'll see in their agreement that they have on page 4, some of their fees, so the costs, the construction documents, the assistant, the SCADA modifications, etc. A total fee of $240. If you take then the back page, they have 2, which is the south booster pump station costs and then also the wells cost. That adds up to a very convenient $475,117, about $1,700 less than the 477, because we know it's going to be a little less. But we also know that they'll sign the funding agreement if we hand them something that's at their funding amount, and they won't go back and forth. So with that, I know actually Bill's here. He could probably answer any of the specific questions, but this could be huge benefit to the district to get some grant monies to improve our well field booster stations, communications. You'll see that I've informed the board on a subsequent item about some of our IT upgrades. One of the reasons to push off the in-office SCADA machine upgrade is we pretty sure we can do it as part of this project, but we won't know until we kind of get into it. So with that, my recommendation is that you approve the two ordinances that are before you.
I do have a
Questions?
question, and I'll direct this towards Mr. Palmer Mason if I can. We had some discussion in the past about improving the capacity of the wells. Do you think these improvements might take the well production to what we had estimated conservatively at 180 acre-feet a month to potentially up to 300, 320?
Yeah, certainly an increase, Director McVeigh. I don't have my numbers in front of me. We had anticipated, when conditions were right with the system, we could bring the flow from 1,500 gallons per minute to like 2,200 gallons a minute,
Right.
give or take, and that would only be on certain times of the day. But right now, we don't have the controls or the ability to do that remotely or even automatically. The only way we know we can do it is when the conditions were right, we went down there and did it by hand. So the option back then was if you wanted to leave somebody down there to do it, which we didn't.
No.
That was the only way it was going to happen. So that was kind of what spurred this idea, was to make the wells more productive.
Excellent.
Now, in the resolution, it says, electrical repairs project to update the electrical SCADA system for 2 existing wells, allowing the wells to operate simultaneously without interruption and at full capacity and meet the demands of the residents of the district. So there it is.
Yeah, but when you say meet the demands, what are those demands, you know, so.
Well, we can put out, apparently by what it says here, and by what I'm looking at and reading through all of this stuff that they've got here, we can be assured that we'll be able to put out 180, 360,
Say
acre
300, which might save us if the Middletown conduit had a massive failure.
Yeah.
Well, I would hope that we could double our 180, but.
Well, we can double 180.
But I understand that our old distribution system may not handle too much pressure.
That's
to go
correct.
beyond.
And there's
So
definitely some system restrictions with doing that.
And I think too, just for operational reasons, to be able to monitor that, control that remotely through SCADA, fine tune the wells to make sure you're not over pressurizing things and causing other failures. So I think as the directors have stated, this could be a huge benefit. We may not be able to double it, but we may be able to.
it'll improve
Yeah.
the conditions. So I would make a motion that we go.
Any other questions from?
I have one.
Thank you.
It says the general manager or designee, who would that be Bill, or he's kind of your second?
Yeah.
So, okay. I just wanted to make sure.
Well, no, it's good that you asked that. I asked, it's funny, I was gonna just remove it, but the state said, no, we like to have that in there because, you know, what if you're on vacation and we actually need something signed to get reimbursed for? I'm like, okay, got it.
Well, most places have a manager and an assistant. I just wanted to make sure it was Bill.
Oh, yes?
I have a question, if you don't mind. Or not a question, a comment. On the resolution, 2023-02, down about 4th paragraph, it's got parentheses around general manager. Trying to remove those parentheses.
Yeah, we can remove those.
Yeah.
That's
And I got
good
a-
catch. See, now, that was, this was a sample sent to us by the state saying, if you do this, then we will not even, we'll just check it off and do it.
And I had a question under the standard provisions of the contract. I have a question about, let's see, I think it's number 15. It refers to an ALTA survey statement. You got any idea what that is?
Yeah, I mean, it's often referred to as an Alta survey. It's mostly when you have property transfers, and so it's not applicable in this repairs contract.
Okay, so this is just standard language.
Yeah, it is standard
Look
language.
that way for some of the things that we've done.
Yeah. And again, just for purposes, it's oftentimes when especially if a public agency is purchasing land for something, this Alta survey is something that we will hire a consultant to do specifically, and it does a much more forensic review of the property, so you know all its history, you know everything that could potentially be on the property. Standard language not applicable here.
Any comments from the public on these two ordinances or resolutions? Okay, we'll bring it back to the board. What's your pleasure, gentlemen?
I have one more question.
Absolutely.
This is all done by radio, and, is it hackable? You're not hooked up to the internet for this at all, right?
No, it is one of the components that we're still not sure of the actual cost that's going to be on this one, because we're actually looking at the current conduit that runs from well number 1 and far enough to the booster station that you could actually have all transmissions done through the conduit and not have it even on the radio. So, but yes, it would be, if that doesn't work, it would be radio, it would not be through the internet.
Yeah.
So just for those that are, listening in, there are ways in which you monitor and transmit SCADA information. So it goes to an internet connection, and then through the World Wide Web, it goes out to the location. And that obviously creates some security issues that PACE has handled, but in this case, it would be a direct connection, either radio or wire.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Another huge improvement, by the way.
Pardon?
Another huge improvement.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it reduces one bill, the AT&T line charge.
Sorry on that bill.
Okay, so we have two ordinances here. I need a motion for each one.
Madam Chairman, I move we approve 2023-02.
I'll second that.
So I have a motion on the floor to accept ordinance 2023-02, and a second motion by Director Fust, and a second by Director McVeigh. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Motion carried. And then for ordinance 2023-03,
I would make a motion that we approve that.
I'll second it.
we have a motion from Director McVeigh authorizing the general manager to sign the engineering agreement with Pace Engineering for the project delivery and design, and a second by Director Lincoln. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No opposed. Thank you.
Thank you to the board.
Thank you.
All right, item 6D, referring to this one as IT upgrades and modernization with computer logistics. The board has heard me multiple times since I started here that the district had need for IT upgrades. You'll see in the background that there's multiple machines that are still running Windows 7. Including the general manager's machine that also is noisy because of a failing fan, but I digress. For those of you that have come in to talk to me, you know you have to talk loud just to be able to talk in my office. Windows 7 hasn't been supported by, or had security patches from Microsoft for at least 4 or 5 years. The board recognized that and set aside some money in the current budget under a title called Computer Windows Update. And so one of the things that I did is I invited 3 companies to come and do just an an assessment. I said, you have to do it for free. Do an assessment of the district's IT, provide us your suggestions or assessment, obviously, and then, give us some alternatives and suggested solutions. Not surprisingly, their assessment identified the multiple Windows 7 machines as a huge security risk. They also identified other elements that potentially could be security risks. The need for regular and potentially cloud backups for our data on our server. Again, there's instances, we had some bad ones here, like fires, in which if you had something like that come through and you weren't able to get it, if you have remote backups, you can actually set up a server somewhere else, download it, and get to work, and send out bills and receive payments. Very important thing for the business of this district. They also identified, sort of our old Fry software as potential challenge, but they don't have a solution for that. We're going to have to deal with that. And so in the end, we had two companies that gave us a more formal thought. One was a company called Apex, a larger company. They have offices throughout kind of Western United States. Their solution was, let's just go all new now, just replace everything, update everything. You can see it was well over $40,000 actually, and then they pay them $2,000 a month to monitor it and all the rest. It's a very common way to do that, and it provides IT services. It makes, for a lot of districts, we can't afford to have somebody be an IT director, right? I mean, that's just not another thing. The other was a company called Computer Logistics. They're a little bit smaller. They do have experience with some of our fellow water districts, including some remote ones, like in Shingletown. They actually do their computer. They just took over actually doing Centerville. But they also have some bigger ones, like the city of Shasta Lake is actually one of their clients. And I think because of that, they understood my message to them, which is be friendly to our budget. And so they came up with a phased approach to get us into the 21st century. So replacing most of the Windows workstations, getting a new firewall, and all doing that within our budget. As you'll see, it's about $7,100 for the workstations and replacing the firewall. The other thing too that all of the companies recognize is that we're currently our email. We are using a little company called Shasta Mail, and it's a not to get technical, but it's a POP mail service. So in other words, there's really no calendar interaction with it. There's very little security in it. It's good service. They do a good job, but we're paying an amount for that. And all of the companies came into us and said, we really think you should, your paul.kelly at clearcreekcsd.org or com should all be run through Microsoft 365. And so once we got into that, we realized the subscription service could also be, if you pay your $15 a month, you will have access to Microsoft Word, Microsoft Outlook, and all the rest of Excel and apps for those things. Because currently, we're paying on that credit card that the chair mentioned, $100 a month for some variety of different licenses for different computers. Also, Bill had put some money in his budget to replace the SCADA machine up at the treatment plant. That one, I believe, is still running Windows 7 and is going to be updated, so they gave us a proposal for that. They also have, I think I mentioned to you, one company said $2,000 a month. These guys said, hey, for $450 a month, or I'm just making it round number, $500 a month, they will put a security on every one of our machines. That's about $10 a month, so it's a, you know, in other words, it gets rid of all of our different mishmash of Norton on one and Microsoft on another. They also will have an email security. They'll have their Microsoft 365 backups. They also have suggested that for most of the employees, we do a $12.50 a month email service. And for some of our field folks, all they really need is an email. So for that, we can do it for $6 a month, but we can obviously upgrade it. But the big thing is they will do their server backups and they will provide cloud backup services. Our internet speed may not be fast enough to get the initial backup up to the cloud. So one of the other things they suggested, because they've done it for other small districts like in Shingletown and others, when the internet speed's not fast enough, they'll actually come out here, do a backup onto a disk, load it on, go back to their office, load it on the cloud, and then every day our machine will get a picture taken and it'll get updated on the cloud. Now it's small, right? Any changes that have happened during the day. So that's a long thing. You can see I put in here their proposal, but the main thing I would just say, because being your financial oversight guy, I attached something on the back that just shows that we have $10,000 in the current budget set aside for the Windows upgrade. This cost is $7,900, so we actually have about $2,000 left over. The reason why I'm going with that, because I'm sure when they come to install it, we're going to find out we need a little something to get the screen up higher, so my back doesn't hurt so bad, and a few other things like that. They also will be purchasing the SCADA machine, so we have a little bit of leftover money for that. That's mostly for Bill and others to work on putting that thing together and getting it installed up there. And then the cloud services, like I said, for the next 4 months, it will be $540.68 a month. They recommend eventually getting us to $1,000 a month for all of their monitoring stuff. But again, recognizing our budget, they said, yeah, let's start this and get you going. Now, what I found is that we are spending currently hidden, spread all over different places, about $800 a month on different things. That's for Norton, that's for Zoom. We still have a Zoom account we're spending $15 a month on. We're spending $100 plus a month on various Microsoft licenses. This is not uncommon. I've seen it in other districts, but a few years ago, the folks around here said, oh, we need a license for Microsoft Office. So they went on and they got a family plan, which is for 3 machines, right? And they go, oh, we need more. So they got another family plan. So that's why we have these mishmash of, and we're paying, we probably average, it doesn't happen every month, but we currently have Advanced Concepts, which is an IT company on call. And we're probably spending a couple $100 on average in the last 12 months, $200 to $300 a month on that. Sometimes nothing, but sometimes a couple thousand. So again, we get rid of all of that stuff. So we're expiring $800 a month, and we're going to spend, at least for the rest of this fiscal year, $540.